Hello world, welcome to the 76th Climate Change Emergency Protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, USA. Of course, we're still at home, we're in the middle of the coronavirus as yet, and hopefully eventually restrictions will ease up. That doesn't mean the virus is going away. I kind of believe that everyone's going to catch it eventually and have to deal with the situation at hand as to how sick they're going to get and everything. So, they say there's a vaccine coming out. I don't quite trust the vaccines for the first group of people to test it out. So I don't know if I would want to be the guinea pig or not, but I kind of doubt it at this point. I think I'd rather have the virus and try to go through it that way, maybe. I don't know. But anyways, that's something we'll cross when we cross it. This is the 76th Climate Change Emergency Protest, as I said, in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. It's May 22nd. And next week will be May 29th, and that'll be number 77, and that'll be the graduation protest because my stepson, Tanya's son, is graduating from high school, and I'm going to give an outlook, about their future world and everything, and the world they're walking into, and not only with coronavirus, but also with climate change. So this is more of a mental outlook type talk here as to, how to deal with climate change, or what we're going to be dealing with climate change, or what you go through when you start looking into the world of climate change and coronavirus as well. They're all linked together, as we all are linked together. So there's no peeing into the pool. Everything's all connected, and so this talk will be oriented towards that. Coronavirus is an opportunity for governments to change the way they're operating as far as pure capitalism goes, and it's a chance to change their operating system as far as I win, you lose type capitalism, and instead have more of a safety net for everyone, and what to do when things go wrong, as they will continue to go wrong. This coronavirus is just the on-ramp to the freeway of climate change, and climate change will be the big issue that involves all of us, and there will be no hiding from it no matter where you go. Some places might improve slightly, such as Siberia and Russia, but for example, this weekend or last weekend there were 95 degrees in Siberia. So that's unheard of. They should be in the 30s or 40s. Siberia is usually very cold. So they're at 95 degrees. They're going to have forest fires again, or whatever, the tundra catch on fire. The governments right now are doing a business as usual. Our government here in the United States wants to reopen and to act as if everything is back to normal. And it's the wrong way to go about things. There's no future planning as far as, hey, what can go wrong in the future here 3 weeks from now, 3 years from now. And they're not thinking ahead, and they're very reactive, almost like a lizard. And it would indicate that, the government is being run by lizard people, and that they're very reactive, and they don't think, well, we need to project ahead as to how to deal with issues that come about. And it is a chance for the media also to report as to climate change, and not just be stuck on coronavirus. They could have informed the public all along as to how bad climate change is going to be. They could have real scientists on board and give talks, have their scientific evidence as to where we're going with climate change. And that's being lost. This sensationalism of coronavirus is an opportunity for them to make money, and that's all they're seeing, as would be a lizard person would do that. There's no forethought as to where we're headed, or thinking about how to change things for the future so we don't go through this kind of situation again. To discuss plans. The media has a responsibility as the fourth estate in the United States, behind the executive branch, legislative branch, and also the judicial branch. They're basically a fourth part of government. And what's happened with our media in the United States is they're very political in their talks now. People don't want to believe it, but originally you had Fox Television that owned the right wing, and now you have MSNBC, CNN, and everything. And the last primary with Sanders and Biden and everyone else kind of really threw the blanket of, or the curtain of pretending that we have a pure democracy and a media that's unaffected by the happenings and reporting on events. No, these news organizations are heavily oriented towards right-wing or left-wing talking points. probably your best news to get now is on YouTube from various sources, rather than staying with the media that is owned by 8 corporations in our country. This is a damning sentence that I'm saying about the media, but they're untrustworthy as far as getting the real news out. You get these talking heads on both Fox and MSNBC, CNN, and whatnot that have their own political outlook on things, and it's a shame as to where the media has gone. They've dropped the ball, and their responsibility to the world and to the United States is to pointing out things and researching. And a lot of this happened several years ago when United Press International went belly up and just left Associated Press as the sole finder of facts and whatnot on throughout the world. And when you have one organization, as if you have a monopoly, it's not a good thing. You need multiple food sources, media sources, things like that. Whenever you go into a single type source, it can lead to very deleterious effects. And right now we're seeing it in that the news is not being reported properly. So anyways, the media's dropped the ball, but it is a chance for us to change, as in a metamorphic rock. We can reform ourselves into our thought process if you take advantage of the coronavirus situation where you're at home for the most part. We can have a different outlook as to how we want things to go. The pandemic is a good opportunity to stay here and to try to research things. And I highly recommend YouTube if you're going to watch TV or whatever to do your research. It's a chance to come up with an opinion about your government and where they're headed. It's a chance to look at ourselves and change the way we're doing things, such as single-use plastics or having gas-guzzling vehicles and things. Right now, gasoline is very cheap. And that's a horrible thing to have happen in the middle of this climate change issue, because what will happen is the truck sales will go way up, and the cars that, the automobile makers that don't care about fuel mileage will just continue to sell. And we have Toyota Priuses that get 50 some miles a gallon, and no one's going to buy them because there's no push for it. People in the United States will just say, well, what's the point, because gas is cheap. Well, it won't always stay cheap, and that's not the way to look at it. You need a responsibility. You have a responsibility to the world and to your children and everyone else's child to behave in a certain way and to act appropriately. So, we need people, not corporations. People need to come first, not corporations. So we need to have an outlook as to taking care of each other, and when corporations aren't paying their taxes or just dumping sewage into the air, such through pollution, we need to look at if corporations want to say they're people, that's fine, but they need to be treated like people. They have a certain amount of responsibility, a heavy amount of responsibility, to be responsible towards people in general. If they want to be people, then be people. You can't play at both ends of the middle here. And their responsibility is being shirked right now. They're not paying their fair share of taxes, and they're just reaping the benefits through our government, through payola, such as the corporations pay the legislators, and the legislators write the laws to benefit the corporations, who turn around to pay the legislators as they're campaigning for re-election or slush funds or speaking events. They'll come and speak before Wall Street for $600,000 for 3 speeches. It's like, come on. This is payola. This is at the very end of it all. It's tit for tat and quid pro quo, as they call it. That they get money, and then in response they write the laws to help the corporations. And a lot of times the corporations write the laws, submit them to the legislators, and the legislators just put it right through in the Congress and propose it as a bill. So our whole government right now is corrupted beyond belief. And the only way to get rid of this situation is to just have a total overhaul, and that's not going to happen as long as the people in charge remain in charge. They're not going to. You cannot change the situation with the very people that got you there, and that's how our presidential election is going too. Is that you can't have 2 corporatists running and expect some sort of change. You look at the history of both persons that are going to be the nominees for president, and it's not a good situation. Things will not change. You can't hope for change. If you believe that change is going to come, then you're foolish, because in the last 40 years, no change has come, and in fact, it keeps getting worse and worse. Yeah, you'll have individual laws that end up being good, but the overall effect, as in a swirl going down in a whirlpool, is that things are going downhill. And you know, we need to start evaluating ourselves and our thought processes to who we're voting for, rather than, you know, we need to do the right thing rather than voting for people that we think are going to make the changes that have no indication that they're going to change at all. They might say it, but their history does not indicate that they're going to change. So mentally, with this metamorphosis that we're all going to have to go through, if you choose to, and we all need to, is that you hit an electric fence. It's very painful, this electric fence, as to how to get through it. And when you finally realize that things need to dramatically change, with not only with our government or organizations, but within ourselves. And the only way to do that is to do a lot of research on YouTube. Is what I highly recommend, or read books. But the problem with books right now is they're out of date by the time you get them. They're already, the way climate change is changing so fast, it's out of date. And by the time you get it, you're already, you know, a year behind or 2 years behind. So you have with this change that I've been talking about, this metamorphosis, you have Maslow's hierarchy, and it's like a pyramid in that you have the physical needs, which is at the base of the pyramid, and then you have safety, which is the next issue, which is security and health. And the next step is love, where you have the need for family and friends, things like that. And then you have self-esteem as the next step beyond that, which is being recognized for what you're doing, and status. You know, some people feel they need status. But the last step in the whole thing of Maslow's hierarchy is self-actualization. And that, you know, there's something out there that's higher than yourself. You know, doing the right thing for climate change, in spite of the fact that you might lose your friends and family, is really a true calling, in that you have to do the right thing. And if you're right in what you're doing, then you sleep like a baby at night. You know, you might lose a lot of people initially, but if you stay true and talk about facts and don't budge on what you believe, or what you know for a fact, and what are backed up by facts, not what you believe. What you know as fact, eventually your friends and family will come back, or they won't. But you know, if they choose not to, that's their choice. But at least at night you can sleep very well knowing you've done the right thing. And it goes also with voting. If you're going to vote for lesser of two evils, what happens is that the whole political outlook of the parties starts shifting to the right, more and more so-called conservative, even though I look at it as being radical right. Voting for lesser of two evils only gets you evil. You know, the thought process is you got to find people that are more in line with you, or parties that are more in line with your thought process. If you're all about corporations and everything, then, you know, stay in the two parties, enjoy it, have fun, knock your socks off. But the only way to change the parties is to either be true to yourself and not knuckle under to what they're demanding, and make them shift your way rather than you shift their way. Right now, the tail is wagging the dog. The people are the power, and yet the people have given that power, ceded that power over to the corporations and to the parties in charge. And you can still stay within your party as long as you continue to try to make changes in a hardcore way, not in an appeasement way, not shifting the needle a little bit at a time. Whatever you believe, you need. The Tea Party was a good example of that for the Republican Party. They were crazy, off their nut, off to the right, and they caused the whole Republican Party to shift to the right. Well, you know, if you don't like the way things are going as far as outlook and climate change and everything, you want to shift things to the left, then be that way as the Tea Party was to the right. You know, and people will come along as long as you back it up with facts. Eventually, you will win out. You just have to be firm and stay the course, and, you know, keep doing what you're doing. Gandhi, and sorry, I had a phone call. These crank phone calls from everywhere on iPhone always come in. So, you know, stay the course, stay where you are, and keep, you know, hopefully things will shift your way. If not, that's okay, but you know you did the right thing. So the consequences, right now the CO2 level is 417 and only parts per million, and only 280 and below are survivable, in the sense that things will not change all that much concerning the environment. and right now we're at 417 parts per million. So we're well above any survivability level. And the consequences of the Paris Agreement is that they're predicting anywhere as business as usual from a 3.5 degrees Celsius increase to an 8.5 degrees Celsius increase as far as temperature goes. I know they say they want to stay below 2 degrees Celsius. Even that's a horrible way to look at things, but there's no way they're going to stay below 2 degrees Celsius. Some of the reports say 3.5 to 8.5 at business as usual, and which is 6.3 degrees Fahrenheit on up to like 13.5 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's not okay. That won't be survivable. What happens is you end up with feedback loops, and many of these feedback loops, for example, in the Arctic, with the Arctic you can end up with a loss of sea ice, then you end up, or loss of snow up there, then you lose your albedo, the reflectivity of the sun, which causes methane and carbon dioxide to come out of the permafrost, and or methane hydrates out of the ocean floor. Then you get more heating, which loses more snow and ice. It's a whole cycle that just keeps going over and over again, and eventually the whole weather system gets totally screwed up. Another example would be the Arctic, or the Amazon rainforest. You know, when you start losing a tree, I only lost one tree, then you lose 10 trees, then you lose 50 trees, then thousands of trees. What happens is the Amazon rainforest, instead of being a carbon sink, meaning it absorbs carbon, becomes a carbon emitter. And the effects of that is that you get heating as well down there, because most of the rainforests are near the equator for that in that region. So you get more heating, which causes more tree loss, which causes more destructive effects on the environment. So it changes the weather patterns down there, and it just keeps building and building. And eventually, what's going to happen in the Amazon is that you're going to end up with a savanna. And you know, eventually after that, with all the heating and change of rainfall and lack of rainfall, since we're on the equator, is you're going to end up with the Amazon desert. And that's kind of a term no one said, but I truly believe, you know, based on the evidence, is that you're going to end up with a desert in South America if we don't start changing things immediately. And you know, it's something to think about, the Amazon desert. So what happens with these dramatic changes with the Arctic and or the Amazon is that you get strange weather patterns. So right here, for example, today it's raining, it's in the 50s. This is the end of May. It should be like 70 degrees every day. It should be nice and comfortable, fun to go out, and it hasn't been fun. So today it's going to be in the 50s, it's raining, and then on next week it's going to be 87 degrees and getting very, very warm, which is also an extreme temperature. So you can't count on anything as far as growing. Our garden, we plant stuff and then it dies because it got frosted this month already. So we had to replant everything. So you got to be aware of what's going on. And if you're a farmer, this is really tough for them. I can't imagine being a farmer in the United States or in Europe or anything, because the temperatures are fluctuating so bad. Turkey, the nation of Turkey, had extreme heat. Now they're going to have freezing weather coming up, winter. So the people exist on subsistence farming, some of them, and if they don't have farms or food, they don't get paid, they don't eat. So it's a very scary situation. When you start changing entire environments, you end up with hunger issues, habitat loss, and eventually chaos. And governments will tend to go more militant when you know, you have those issues going down, because people won't stand by and allow that to happen and watch your kids starve to death. So they're going to get angry, and then the government's going to have to respond, you know, with some sort of martial law. And that's the things you kind of got to try to avoid. You know, it's nice to be dogmatic in your party, Republican or Democrat, and stick to your guns as far as you think their outlook with their corporations. But eventually it's going to come home, and your dogmatism is not going to work out. And I invite you to talk to someone who actually knows what's going on with the environment, actually knows what's going on with the environment, not someone that thinks they know what's happening with climate change. And they will give you the straight story as to you know, what the long-term effects are of this ignoring the issue at hand. This electric fence that you run into, it's an emotional electric fence, and it's painful to go through. It's associated basically with the, you know, the grief stages that you go through a depression when you encounter climate change and, you know, the long-term effects of it. It's very difficult because you lose family and you lose friends when you try to talk about it, and you need to talk to people about it, or through media sources or anything like that, or go on Facebook and deal with like-minded people that know what's going on. As I said, do your research on YouTube. There's a lot of really good scientists out there. There's a lot of scientists that don't know what they're talking about too, or act like they're scientists. People that have no scientific basis as to what they're saying, but you need to pick and choose as to what you think is factual or not. But I recommend going through scientists. I'm probably going to miss names here, but Peter Wadhams, Peter Carter, Guy McPherson, Paul Beckwith. You can go through Extinction Rebellion. You could look up Environmental Coffee House, and there's many different places you can do your research. Jimmy Dore gives you the really straight shooter outlook as far as politics goes. He's very crass though, and most people couldn't take him. So anyways, once you know the facts though, you can stick to your guns and be very confident in that what you know is true, no matter what people say disparaging wise towards you. And there's some strength in that, a huge amount, that knowing the facts rather than worrying about what your family and friends will say. This issue of climate change is bigger than ourselves, and this goes with the Maslow's hierarchy, in that it's a transformative issue, in that you not only look at yourself, you look at your children or friends' children and realize that they very well could end up dead very soon. And soon, I mean like 6 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever. People are going to have a real struggle trying to live. It's going to be a Mad Max situation if we continue on this path and ignore what's happening. And so we need to think outside of ourselves, look to the future, stop being lizard brains and worrying about this immediate issue right here. You got to solve the problems at hand, but you also got to think about what possibly could happen in the future. And the choices we make today are going to affect everything in the future, and choices we have already made are going to affect everything as well. But we need to look with, like, for example, the Native Americans say, you got to look down 7 generations. Well, do you really believe that 7 generations are going to be here, on this earth? I don't see how, with the way things are going, scientifically speaking. So we're going to have enough of a struggle getting through the next 6 years and then 20 years. If we don't change the way things are going and keep voting for people that are going to continue to take you down this horrible path, we're going to die. So you need to start looking at people that actually know what they're talking about and have an outlook on things. And the idea of each country going it alone is not going to work. We need to work together as a group. The Paris Agreement was really good, but it didn't go far enough because they went with the lowest common denominator as to who disagreed the most, and that's whose outlook they stayed with. So they didn't really give the agreement with any teeth in it, and any changes that could be made and required of governments. So it was a nice start, but that was 4 years ago. Now it's 2020, and we still haven't done anything. So things are going really bad as far as the need for change and getting things done. You cannot move the needle slowly, and I highly recommend that every one of you, and I'm sure some of you are already doing it, do the brave thing and start stepping out and doing commentaries like this on YouTube, writing your opinions or facts on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you need to do it. And it's going to be painful. You're going to lose friends and family, but if they see that you're doing the right thing, they will or will not come along, but at least you've done the right thing as far as stepping out. So look forward to the future, think about your kids, look across the table at them, and think about the kids in the neighborhood and everything, and just know that you need to do the right thing in order to go forward. I know this talk was a little disjointed. I'm a little off my game with this, the rain situation and my notes and whatnot. So hopefully next week will be the 77th climate change talk, and that will be graduation talk about the future for kids and everything, and try to do something positive, but also look at the actual reality of the situation. So I'll catch you on May 29th, which is next Friday, for talk number 77. Thanks for hanging in there. See you later. Bye.